Hey, good morning. I'm here today to talk to you about beginnings and endings. It just was my inspiration to use this as my topic because it all starts with the beginning and it all seems to end with an ending. But as polarities are wont to do, beginning and endings can morph, can switch. Begin something new, end something to begin something new. New beginnings after old endings. Yeah, it's a beautiful exercise. And having been inspired, never really sure where the inspiration comes from. I received this following message from a beautiful, giving, thoughtful, young lady friend. And I want to share it with you. I want to read this message because I think that it addresses topics that will be useful to us all. Okay, I have to come a little closer, okay? I'm here to ask you your thoughts about something. What do you think about a long past that sometimes still knocks at your door, full of I'm not doing your message. Knocks on your door. Knocks on your door in the present. The past calls to the present. A situation that was self-destructive, full of temptation and complexity, that one is never to receive closure and peace with. And not being able to have full understanding of it, trying to let it go, wondering on if it is normal for the past to creep up and make you relive your past temporarily. Or is it better to actively try to let it go so that it won't creep up on you anymore? Because if it comes back to you again, it means you don't understand it well enough. You haven't learned about it enough. But then you can't ever understand it fully. What are your thoughts on getting peace? Or ability to accept, to embrace it whenever it comes, and for having the ability on letting it come when it comes, dealing with it openly and letting the door close again and again, but dealing with it that makes the person unstable and full of sighs and wonder. So beautiful. Such a beautiful, heartfelt message. And I was inspired to share with all of you today because it was to the point and well said. My first thought upon reading this, and sorry, I didn't do a very good job of reading her message. Time to see the eye doctor again and get better glasses. I don't know. But if you did get the message, if you did understand, if you were with her, and you could see some familiarity in your own life, it might be helpful as well. As many of us ask a question, if we ask it thoroughly and long enough, funny that our answer will be contained within. Just as my friend in her message answered her own question. When we listen to questions, rather than immediately jumping on it, supplying an answer, as a teacher, as a university teacher, I was cautioned about answering too quickly. I wasn't ever afraid to say, I don't know, but I will find out. And I would follow up, and on the very next class, I would address this question. So I wrote back to her, telling her that I needed a little time to sit on it, to sit on the question. And I have. And what I want to say at this point is, listening is such a key. In this case, I didn't get to listen to her voice with the question. I had to settle for listening to my voice. As I read her message out loud to myself, and followed up by reading it out loud to any of you that might be listening. So when something's important to me, I want to hear the voice. Ideally, we come from the source. But in this case, I had to substitute. I needed to hear that sound out loud. When anything's important to me, I read a lot. But I read out loud when I stumble across something that is meaningful. Somehow by voicing it, putting it to words, I contribute to the meaningfulness, at least for me, in the message. So, listen. And when someone comes to you with a question, listen carefully, because their answer is within the question, just as my friend had her own answer within the question. And what she was doing, consciously or not, was asking for validation. And most questioners are seeking validation of what they feel to be so. And in most cases, the best course of events, if you can do it in good conscience with full support, is to validate, is to support their quest for understanding. Because it's just an egoic characteristic, and particularly tempting to those that consider themselves wise, to pontificate, to give an answer that is wanted or not, grasped or not. So, to the wonderful young woman who wrote me her message, indeed, your message contains your answer, and I'm here to support and to validate. But a little room was left for some input on my part. And part of the process of dealing with the past, especially reoccurring events, you might dismiss it and say, okay, never mind, put that in the dustbin, put it in the trash. Yeah, like I talked yesterday. Today has a way of taking care of yesterday. That's yesterday's news. But when it pops up, when it recurs again, just as she was insightful and understood, she just questions herself, why am I getting this message? Especially when the impact of dealing with this message is so devastating. And if this is comfort to you, all of us have past events when remembered can be devastating. So just to say that you have company in this. I certainly have a checkered past. And for me, what I did, as she's in the process, examine, reflect, sit on, consider, whatever verb you want to use. There's a lesson there. And lessons, as you know, can be, and usually are, very, very painful. The voyage to self-discovery is fraught with pain. And reflection, consideration, is not an easy process. But it needs to be done, especially when you see the patterns. The primary, most obvious lesson is learn from the past. Learn from whatever you consider to be your mistakes, or better yet, someone else's mistakes. It begins with accepting responsibility for your part, even no matter how innocent you claim or would like to see yourself, no matter how much of a victim you feel of circumstance. We're not victims, none of us. In some way, as pleasant as is to consider, we're responsible for what happened to us. So this painful self-examination is part of the process. First step, accept responsibility. Don't be a victim. Second step, consider, have you learned the lesson? Or is it necessary to completely to have to deal with this issue again and again? So ask yourself, am I honestly facing this issue? Now this is quickly followed by the most important step of this process is to forgive yourself. You don't need to forget. But in the process of forgiving yourself, you reach the magnanimity to forgive any others that might have been involved in this memory. If you try to stuff it down, to ignore it, to try to forget it, as you see, the pattern will repeat and repeat. I always looked at it in my process. I would get first a little tap, and then if it caught my attention, I dealt with it. Fine. If I didn't, the tap would get harder. And in this process, it would culminate with being hit upside the head with the 2x4. Metaphorically, of course, hopefully. But couldn't be ignored any longer. So no time is better than the present to deal with the past. Forgive. And try to separate yourself from this lesson. In other words, don't take it so personally. All of the above are not easy to do. But in the spirit of today's message, if you give it a healthy ending, which is recognition, acceptance, forgiveness, then you can have an ending which allows a new beginning. And thank you. Thank you for reaching out. Thanking you. Thank you for giving me food for thought. Thank you for just being you. So those of you that have reoccurring, painful, or even joyous, even reoccurring joyous occasions to relive the past. If something can't be gleaned, if something can't be learned, if something can't be mined from memories, then their purpose is complete. Except today, except that today can take care of yesterday. It's a leap of faith. Trust. Trust yourself. But until you end something, it's never recommended to begin something else. Especially if they're in a similar vein. We talk about closure, closing the past so that you can move on to the future. We see this most often. We're more aware, more vested in relationships, in matters of the heart, where one relationship ends and endings are painful. Beginnings are seldom painful. We celebrate beginnings, but we mourn for endings. What I'm suggesting is to bring equanimity, to meet beginnings enthusiastically, which is easy, but more difficult is to meet endings with peace, with equanimity, with balance, with equality. Because the beauty of endings is that they contain the kernel, the seed of a new beginning. But just like planting anything, you need to provide, you need to offer sustenance, and you need to nurture. So think of an ending as the grounds for beginning. Because, after all, where do we measure a beginning? Where do we end an ending? Where do we begin a beginning? It's like so much else. A gradual process. Just as a seed will turn to a plant, which will bear flowers, flowers become fruits, and fruits have the seeds. As they're ending their life, they've provided the seeds for a new beginning. So, to mourn for endings is in our human nature. We mourn the death of loved ones and friends. We celebrate beginnings. We celebrate birth of children, both our own and that of others. We celebrate someone who's beginning a new job. And what I'm suggesting is radical. With the same enthusiasm, with the same goodwill, we should accept endings. Death of family and friends is not a time of mourning. In my view, it's a time of celebration. And this is secured in the knowledge and understanding that life continues. Life stretches towards infinity. It's only the structure, the old structure, that gives way to the new. Without the demise, without the endings, we couldn't have beginnings. So, celebrate. Embrace, accept, recognize what endings truly mean. And equally so, take a look at beginnings. Because in beginnings, the seeds of sorrow are also planted. Inevitably, within a beginning is the fact that it must, will end. So I'm not only suggesting that we look at endings in a different way. I'm suggesting that how we look at beginnings is just cursory. We have seldom take the time, pause, to reflect, to shed a tear, if necessary, in the knowledge that all beginnings have an ending. Now, I find joy in this. I see this as the circle of life on this continuum. Maybe the sphere of life, because after all, it's three-dimensional. The sphere of life. There's many circles in all directions that you could come up with in the sphere of life. Let's start not only celebrating beginnings, but celebrating endings, with understanding that looking within any beginning is not a leap to go to the ending. So both of these, endings and beginnings, should be an opportunity for reflection. None of these are insignificant. Nothing that occurs around you is without meaning, without significance. Even though in our busy times we're accepting of not giving the time and energy to appreciate the little things. We're in between, waiting in anticipation for the big things. And we're wondering, are the big things good things? Or are the big things bad things? And remember, this kind of judgment about what's good and what's bad is also a beautiful arena for reflection. Because we've all experienced things that we thought initially, well, that's great, good news, that's fantastic, only to find out that it wasn't so great. And equally so, initially seeing something as bad news and have it come full circle back to where you see the good news within, just as looking for the seeds of beginnings in endings and endings in beginnings, we should look for the bad within what appears to be good, and the good that appears to be bad. It's only upon this reflection, this acceptance that nothing is as it seems, that you begin to appreciate the wonder of what it is to be us. The wonder of what it is to be part of something that is so much greater than most of us can even imagine. See the connections. See the connections in yourself and all that's around you. Understand that there's no separation or division. Even when it comes to the concepts that I'm talking about today, endings and beginnings, within each is the seed of the other. Within good and bad, there's elements of both within. So it's a matter of acceptance. It's a matter of not being vested, to understand that within all polarities, all opposites, all diametrically opposed concepts, there's the seed of the other. And as I suggested before, it's this morphing between when does good become bad? When does bad become good? When does the endings become good? When does the beginnings become bad? It's within this exercise, this stretching, this thorough, peaceful examination of what's so, that there's room for growth.